The 2026 MLB Draft is a month away, so we asked Tyler Jennings of Just Baseball to hop on with us and set the stage for it. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Thursday, June 11th, 2026. My name is Tyler Gonzalez, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Colby Patnode. Today, we'll be joined by draft expert Tyler Jennings of Just Baseball to start getting you set for the 2026 MLB Draft. But before we visit with him, we've got some Mariners injury news to discuss. Before last night's loss to the Orioles, the Mariners made a flurry of moves, sending down Ryan Bliss and calling up Miles Mastroboni, but most notably calling up Domingo Gonzalez to take the bullpen spot of Matt Brash, who is back on the injured list for the second time this season with a right lat strain. That, of course, is the same injury that forced him onto the IL the first time about a month or so ago in Minnesota. And Colby, I think now we know why he didn't necessarily look like himself on Monday.
Yeah. Second time you've been put on the IL with that same injury. I think it's time to position yourself in a spot where you assume you're not getting a single inning from Matt Brash for the rest of the year, and you build out the team around that idea, and then Brash, if he comes back, great. And last time it only took him, 2 weeks to come back? Yeah. So certainly not, no chance. But the second time with the same injury, I mean, and they've really babied him along the way. He hasn't pitched back-to-backs, really at all this year. It's pretty concerning that it's happened a second time. In the short term, obviously it sucks. You're already a man down in the bullpen. Your high leverage guys basically have to get used every single night. Like, you don't have a mid-leverage guy really to use. And plus you're an arm short because of the 6-man and because of the piggyback anyways. So yeah, Brash was probably, he wasn't getting swing and miss this year, but he was probably the guy most likely to turn into that swing and miss monster that you need. So just really bad timing. And obviously, again, the same injury about a month apart, and he's going back to the IL. I don't think you can spin this as good news. Even if they say, it's probably just going to be another couple weeks. And then what? He pitches for 2 weeks and he's back on the IL again. Like, it just kind of is starting to seem like a bit of a lost season for Matt Brash. And, for a team that already needed another high leverage bullpen arm, this certainly doesn't help things.
No. Now, Domingo Gonzalez did not have a particularly good return to the bullpen. Tonight, we're recording this Wednesday night right after the game because we just did our interview with Tyler Jennings, which you're about to watch in a couple minutes here, or here if you're just listening on podcast platforms. But yeah, I'm not really sure how long for this bullpen Domingo Gonzalez is. So what are the alternatives? Because the Mariners DFA'd Yosfer Zulueta.
Zulueta was not throwing strikes. It's funny, before the season started, he was probably the best Mariner arm in spring camp, results wise. And he just never found the strike zone. He's DFA'd. We'll see if he clears. I don't think the Mariners care that much. There's still Josh Simpson, who I believe is healthy right now. It's kind of tough to keep track of who's healthy and who's not in the Mariners. Or Josh Simpson, if they want a third lefty. Ferrer's probably down tomorrow as well. So if they want another lefty for tomorrow, or for maybe even the National Series with James Wood and CJ Abrams, is he a switchy? I think he is, right?
No, he's just a lefty. He's just a lefty.
Okay. Yeah. Well, anyways, yeah. So there are still some guys left. It's an IL stint, so you don't have to follow the 10-day. Well, I guess technically Gonzalez did replace Brash, so you do have to follow the 10-day thing. Not that really matters for this ball club. So yeah, it's just kind of one of those things where you probably. It's probably time to start talking about guys who aren't currently on the 40-man, because you need to chase a little bit of upside here with this bullpen spot, especially if you're going to be a man short. You need a guy who can play his way into this type of start, or this type of role that Brash just left. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be Ortiz. I don't think it's going to be Simpson. I really hope it's not Troy Taylor. Although, again, if you're chasing upside, Cole Wilcox, maybe, but
already kind of seen it, been there, done that, got the t-shirt.
Carlos Vargas, not healthy. His absence might actually be one of the more impactful injuries that we haven't talked about at all this year. So if you're going to go off the 40-man roster,
flag player list, Colby, does that give me a win? Maybe
I will give you 0.1 WAR for that.
Okay, I will take it.
Which is 0.1 more than he had all of last year.
So someone in the comments, jot that down. Remind me for the next flag player update next month.
If you're going to go outside the 40-man, I think two names jump out right away, and it's Charlie Bylinson and Brock Moore. Yeah. Moore just recently called up to AA, so that would be a pretty steep jump, but the numbers are the numbers.
I missed that. I didn't know that he got called up. Nice. Finally.
He's missed an insane number of bats. He's not walking guys. He probably has the best stuff in the system from a reliever standpoint. You're not going to call up Sloan. You're not going to call up Kate Anderson. Let's just nip that in the bud right now. You're not going to call those guys up to be middle relievers. Not in May, or sorry, not in June, but maybe in September,
late August. Yeah.
I mean, is this finally the push they need to just put Castillo in the bullpen as a full-time reliever? Maybe, but they're probably going to have to make multiple. Gonzalez is probably going down. Now, maybe it's not. He threw 40 some odd pitches today, so he's definitely not available tomorrow. But maybe because of the short turnaround, maybe they can't get a guy there. Blah blah blah. And maybe they just, because of that, they just roll with Wilcox and they make the bigger move when they get back home. But I think Bylinson, who's done a nice job this year, I think Brock Moore, if you're chasing that upside, you're chasing that swing and miss. I don't think it's ridiculous to call up Brock Moore to the big leagues. He's a relief pitcher. He moves really fast and he's producing at an insane clip. So I think you take a shot on Brock Moore. And if it's too much for him, whatever. It's a reliever at the end of the day. You send him down and you try somebody else. So I mean, that would necessitate another 40-man move, obviously, because the Mariners are full up right now. But you think they're going to hesitate to DFA Ortiz or Simpson or Wilcox, or probably not Troy Taylor. So probably not.
I've felt like there were guys that were very clear DFAs, easy DFAs relatively, and then those guys stuck around for a very long time, and they wound up, in a couple of cases, they wound up being something. So I don't know.
Minus the ended up being something, but Domingo Gonzalez, we forgot that guy was on the 40 all winter, and then it's there you go. So I would keep an eye out. There's also guys like the Tyler Clevelands and kind of the long time Mariner guys, and so it'd be cool to see one of those guys get their shot. But I just think, again, because you're chasing something very specific, which is swing and miss, I think Brock Moore is the way to go.
Yeah, you need upside, and you tried to get that with Alex Hoppe, but so far he hasn't given that to you. All right, coming up, we are going to talk some MLB Draft with Tyler Jennings of Just Baseball. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Indeed and Hems. Workplace chaos can show up fast, and the problem is that finding the right candidate can take a lot more time than most businesses can afford. That's where Indeed Sponsored Jobs comes in. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach candidates who actually fit what you're looking for based on skills, experience, and location. In sports, some of the best moves organizations make aren't always the splashiest ones. Sometimes it's finding the person who fits exactly what the team needs at the right moment. That's what stood out to me here, and it's the same idea behind Indeed Sponsored Jobs, helping connect organizations with candidates who are the right fit from the start. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. You know, ED is way more common than most guys think. Millions of guys deal with it at some point, and that's exactly why HIMS offers a straightforward way to handle it. HIMS connects you with licensed healthcare providers online, giving you access to legitimate ED treatment options from the comfort of your home. No awkward appointments, no pharmacy lines, just a straightforward process that makes it easier to take care of yourself. They also offer options like sildenafil, the generic for Viagra, at a fraction of the cost, plus other treatments so you can find what works best for you. It's straightforward, transparent, and designed to make getting care feel easy. To get simple online access to personalized, affordable care for ED, hair loss, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/lockedonmlb. That's hims.com/lockedonmlb for your free online visit. hims.com/lockedonmlb. Prescription required. See website for details and important safety information. Sildenafil is a generic version of Viagra. Viagra is a registered trademark of Viatris Specialty LLC. HIMS is not affiliated with or endorsed by Viatris. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. And also thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you never miss an episode, it's time to make it official. Join the Locked On Everydayer Club and get ad-free audio, access to our members-only Discord, and more, all built for our most loyal fans. To learn more, click the link in the description of this episode. All right, let's talk some 2026 MLB Draft with Tyler Jennings of Just Baseball. All right, we're starting to get ramped up for the 2026 MLB Draft, and here to help us is Just Baseball amateur scouting director and co-host of the College Baseball Show, Tyler Jennings. Tyler, thanks for hopping on. How's it going?
Doing pretty good, guys. Thank you guys for having me on, and excited to talk some Mariners baseball here and some draft as well.
So, as I told you right before we hit record on this thing, you're our first draft guest of the year. So let's just start with a very basic question just about the draft in general this time around. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses of this draft?
I think the clear strength for me on paper would be looking at like the prep pitching group that we have this year. You know, there's a ton of upside in most of these arms, and there's a lot of southpaws too. Something that kind of goes under the radar is the fact that we now have 4 to 5 different southpaws on the prep side that look like they can be top 20 picks. All starts with like Gio Rojas, Logan Schmidt. You look at Brody Bumia, who's really popped off over the past couple of months and has really positioned himself to be like a top 15 pick. Carson Bowman is in the first round consideration as well. And then you got guys like Sean Duncan, who, you know, unfortunately just had blew out his elbow. However, with the track record that he has in the pedigree, there's literally, for me at least, like talking to some scouts, that there's not much of a chance he gets to college at this point. So there's a lot of upside on that side of the demographic. And on the college pitching side, you know, we've mentioned before that like it's a bit on the weaker side compared to the past couple of years, but there's some intriguing upside this year. And I'd say there's a lot more depth than there was, you know, at this point a year ago. When you look at this class, a lot of guys have really popped up this year. Taylor Rabe at Ole Miss is a perfect example. He's a guy that's really pushed himself in the top 2 rounds. Jack Riddell at the back end of the first round to even being like a comp round pick is another guy that's really pushed himself upwards. So, you know, I'd say pitching wise, it's a really, really good. Obviously, college bats, there's depth to it. I would say some of the performances we've seen from the top bats haven't been what we expected. And then prep bats are kind of hit or miss. There's some really good ones at the very top with Emerson and Lombard. But there's not as much depth as the college side, admittedly, on this side.
So for the Mariners, they're picking at number 24. This is a far more straightforward draft than last year was for the Mariners with pick 3 and then the comp round A pick last year. They traded their comp round B pick in the Brendan Donovan trade as well. So it's pretty much just a very, again, like I said, very straightforward draft for the Mariners, but this has obviously been one of the most consistently strong drafting teams in Major League Baseball for a little while now. And that 20-ish range is where they've kind of thrived at times as well, with, you know, the Colt Emerson pick, the George Kirby pick. Those are a couple names that stand out right there to me. So where do you think the Mariners might head? Like, what direction do you think they might head in at number 24?
I would lean towards the college pitching side at this stage. You know, it at this stage with some of the guys that really pushed up boards, I'll give an example. Jack Riddell, like I had mentioned before, where he has a chance to be a back end first round pick. I know Scott Hunter has been out to see him multiple times. He was at the final start of his collegiate career in Charlotte when he pitched against Clemson, went 7 innings, I do believe, with like 2 runs allowed, but 8 strikeouts, looked really, really good. And he's a guy that he fits in that kind of mold where he's got a ton of extension, good fastball traits, has feel to pitch, a really good breaking ball. So you're kind of looking at that. That fits kind of the mold of what the Mariners have been looking for in the past couple of years. Besides that, Tegan Kuhns for Tennessee makes a ton of sense with the fastball quality that he has. And even going past that name as well, you know, Cade Townsend kind of reminds some folks of Bryce Miller. Obviously, Mariners very familiar with Bryce Miller. And then obviously Cole Carlin, if he happens to be there. Logan Redeman, maybe not quite there anymore now with I think it was like a dead arm situation he's been dealing with. But there's definitely a lot of intriguing college arms that kind of fit the mold of what the Mariners have looked for recently. And with the way that they develop pitching, you know, hey, you definitely can't have enough of it at this point.
Colby, what do you got for Tyler?
Just when you say, you know, this is what the Mariners are looking for, what do you think of when you think of a Mariners style prospect in terms of, you know, scouting? Like what is it that they actually go out and look for, in your opinion?
Yeah, definitely on the pitching side, you're looking at extension, you're looking at, you know, plus pitches that guys have. So you look at, or not even pitches, like plus traits. So like George Kirby, for example, plus command, always has been that way. And I still remember he was one of the first guys I ever scouted, went out, saw him. He was 96 98, dotting it wherever he wanted to. You look at Cade Anderson, who a year ago, he jumped all the way up to the top of boards, plus curveball, has feel for, you know, I would say plus velocity at some stage in the future, but he's never really going to get to a plus fastball. But the field of spin has always been there. It's a plus breaking ball. So you kind of look at those traits, and that's something that they've really worked on and really gone after, in my opinion, where, you know, you're looking for these traits that are going to help define a prospect and make them a first rounder. And then you kind of put the building blocks in around that and kind of work from there. So that's what I kind of mean when we kind of look for these traits and find ways to make pitchers evolve and make them better. So like, I'll bring about an example. If we go to Tegan Kuhn's route here with the Mariners, great fastball, could be a plus fastball at the next level, but there's obviously some work to be done with the breaking balls and the off speed as well with the changeup. So, you know, foundation fantastic with the fastball, and you can definitely teach him how to spin the breaking ball better, kind of work on the secondary pitches to make him more of a complete pitcher. And that just makes it a lot easier on your dev team to really rein in what they're looking for and to produce major league talent like they have the past couple of years.
So we're pretty much a month out from the draft now. Draft is on July 11th through the 13th. Where do you think teams are generally at right now with their boards?
I would say they're a lot closer to being complete than they are with mine. I can say that much. It's definitely been a tougher spring, and I wish I could have a more complete board at this moment. But I would definitely say, like, talking to some scouts, they have a lot of meetings that they're going to be going into in the next couple of weeks. And that's just talking to guys at the 17U champs that we're doing this week at USA's Complex and Cary. So they're definitely starting getting to a point where the nitty-gritty is here. Building boards is definitely in the works. I would say we get complete boards for teams within the next couple of weeks. And then as we get closer to the draft, we start figuring out like where the connections are, connect the dots, and kind of go from there.
All right, more from our conversation with Tyler in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Cash App. Being able to send someone money instantly. It's one of those things that's become so normal that you forget how much easier it makes everyday life. If you weren't up to speed already, Cash App is way more than just a safe way to send and receive money. With the Cash App card, you unlock a ton of perks without all the hidden fees. Enjoy benefits like exclusive early access to nationwide concert pre-sales, plus discounts on everyday purchases and popular brands you're probably already spending money on. Add your card to your digital wallet to make your money move easier. Cash App also adds security to your money by declining suspicious card transactions and sending you a notification to make sure the payment is really you. If your card is ever lost or stolen, you can lock it with just one tap right in the app. Spend with confidence with the Cash App card today. New Cash App customers can earn $10 if they use the promo code CashApp10 in their profile at sign up and send $5 to a friend within 14 days. Terms apply. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, we have a Patreon. It's called Control the Zone. And on there, we talk Mariners, Seahawks, all that good stuff. For more information, go to patreon.com/Control the Zone. Link in the description of this episode. All right, now back to our conversation with Tyler Jennings. Now, if the Mariners instead go the bat route, we've talked a lot about college pitching, but like if they go the bat route, I know Nicky Becker's brother is around there, so maybe with that family connection, that could be an option if he falls to 24. Anyone else you got your eye on potentially there for the Mariners?
Any other bats that would work in that position? It's just really tough at this moment because there's really not a lot of bats at the back end of the first round, admittedly. Eric Becker would make sense. He's a guy that I think can stick a shortstop. The defense has gotten better. The bat has been steady for the past couple of years, so he's a guy that makes a ton of sense at that position. If Derek Carriel happens to get there, I know he's a bit lighter on the impact side, but he's proved he can play center. Left-handed bat with a really, really good hit tool and a really good approach. Going to draw a lot of walks. If we're going past that, outside chance of like Chase Brunson at TCU, but again, there's just not really a ton of like good college bats available at the back end of the first round. And the same can really be said about high school bats as well. It's tougher than we've kind of put it out to be on that side of the demographic, admittedly. And talking to a few scouts, there's a few guys that look at it. There's like a giant, I guess like a chasm would be the best way to describe it, from the Emerson, the Lombard, the EJ Booth on the prep side to say the next guy would be like James Clark. It's a pretty big gap compared to the top guys to some of these guys in the, I guess, second tier of high school bats that just don't have the same kind of tools.
Gotcha. Colby?
Is there a sweet spot in this draft? We talk in a lot of drafts to talk about like, hey, if you're picking somewhere between, 25 and 75, like there's a lot of good talent there. Is there a sweet spot, or is this kind of a top heavy draft, would you say?
It's a mix of both, I would say. There's definitely, again, the higher end guys, like the top 10 to 15, I think is a perfect place for your organization to be. There's some good depth between, I would say, picks 30 to 60. There's some high school bats that have really pushed their way up boards, like Archer Horn from California, Connor Como from Texas are two prime examples of that. And then you kind of find guys like Logan Hughes, who could be back in the first round type of guy, but also fits perfectly in like the comp round selections. Cole Prosek, who comes from Mississippi, has been one of the best bats in the country this spring. So there's some depth there. I would say, like, admittedly, like where the Mariners are, like middle to back of the first round, there's a bit of a lull in that higher end talent where you kind of enter the transition from one tier to the other.
Now, as we get later on in the draft, rounds 2, rounds 3, etc., and again, the Mariners don't really have any extra picks during that stretch. But who are some personal favorites of yours, or maybe some guys that you think could fit what the Mariners are typically looking for in those rounds?
Yeah. So the one that really sticks out to me would be a guy like Hunter Dietz. I don't know how far into the first round he'd possibly be. He might be there at 24. But I've also heard some guys that say he might be fit better in like the 30s or 40s to kind of like, there's some fastball quality concerns. Like he's been the angle plays well on his breaking balls, and they're really, really good. There's a lot of guys that don't have that kind of angle to really work off of. So like if you want an example, Trey Savage, from the angle that he has all the way up here, is a prime example because the slider and the splitter are not very outlier. They're not outlier metrics basically, but his field command it and the angle it plays off of from that release height really works. And Dietz is the same way. He's got a really steep release height, so the fastball is coming in steeper, but the spin just there's no hump out of the hand. Guys will just flail at it basically, and it's really really tough for them to kind of go around that. If you're looking for another guy, Ben Blair from Liberty is a quality one. He's a sinker slider kind of guy. And he pitched really, really well this year. I don't think he gets enough credit for how well he pitched, and he showed it against Boston College in the regionals this past couple weekends. So he's another guy that kind of fits that mold. If we're going to go any farther than that, Robert O'Mitty from Canada, he's a kind of a positionless infielder. I say that because he's been played at second base, third base, maybe some outfield as well. So there's nothing really legitimate, but it's a really, really good bat. Hit tool is fantastic. There's some burgeoning power in there. He's the guy that I really like towards like the back end of the top 100, where if he's available in the third round, I think you take a good shot on that.
What impresses you the most about the Mariners scouting department, their development system, all that?
Biggest thing is consistency. You know, you look at the amount of arms they've been able to pump out the past couple of years. I think it's been really, really impressive to build a farm system that is of that caliber. Like Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Bryce Miller went from basically like a fastball only kind of guy at Texas A&M as I think he was a senior sign really, and is now one of the better young arms in the league. So you get Brian Wu in there as well. So the consistency of being able to develop those guys is a key for me. Looking at guys like Cole Young as well. I know he's kind of been hit or miss this year. But he was a guy I loved going through the minor leagues. And then Colt Emerson as well was another one that I loved him as a prep. I know I talked to a few teams where they valued Emerson a lot higher than like Walker Jenkins because he was in that draft class with Max Clark. And some people had him as the second best prep bat in that class. So it was definitely getting some steals, and also again the consistency of being able to develop these guys has really made me kind of fall in love with what the Mariners have been able to do, and they know what they do specifically to a T, and it's just, you know, rinse, wash, repeat every single year, it feels like, and they just do a great job of doing that.
Colby?
College World Series starting up this week. Any prospects that might be Mariners that Mariner fans could watch if they're just looking for some high quality baseball that the Mariners sometimes do or don't give them on a given day? Anybody in the College World Series we should be watching?
Yeah, Ole Miss has a couple of arms that are going to be intriguing for Mariners fans. Obviously, Cade Townsend, we mocked him to the Mariners in our latest mock draft that we did on justbaseball.com. He's been consistently one of the best arms that they've had in their stable. He's been a little rough the past couple of weeks, but you know, it's a really, really good fastball with a hammer breaking ball. A deep pitch mix. When I say he's kind of similar to Bryce Miller, he's got the pitch mix and the mechanics that kind of match. Taylor Rabe is another one that makes sense there. If we want to go for like a deeper cut, Troy has a couple of guys. I know Benjamin Stubbs is, I would say, their best prospect in this year's draft class for Troy. Left-handed pitcher with velocity. You know, he averages like 93, gets up to 96, has a good breaking ball. He came in from, I believe, either D2 or JUCO a year ago, so Troy is really built on that. And if you're looking for like an under the radar guy towards the end of the draft, that kind of fits what they're looking for. That is a guy that kind of fits the mold. So, you know, there's a lot of intriguing prospects in this class. I could go through each team and list off a bunch if I really wanted to, but I know we only have limited time. So we'll stick with those guys for now.
Who's your pick in the College World Series? Who are you taking?
I mean, there's 5 SEC teams, and the SEC has not lost a World Series in the past 7 years, I believe. But I'm bold. You know, UNC, you know, I'm going to stay local. UNC was fantastic the past couple weekends. You know, they took a gut punch against USC in game 1 of the Supers, came back. Jason Nicaro threw a complete game shutout on Saturday. And then obviously everybody's seen the Owen Hull walk off at this point. He's another guy that kind of fits what the Mariners look for. They've dipped into the North Carolina demographic a lot recently. shout out to Ty Holub. He's the local scout here. He does a fantastic job.
Yeah.
So he's another guy that fits it. But they're a team that doesn't get enough credit. They just do everything right. You give them a mistake, they're going to take it the extra mile, and they're just a ball club that's consistent and knows what they're good at. The offense has gotten better over the course of the year. A couple stumbles towards, you get the supers. They got kind of lazy when it came to runners in scoring position, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna die for my ACC teams. I want to see ACC win another national title for the first time in 10 years.
Oh, yeah. So outside of the Mariners, what is the most interesting thing that you're tracking or looking forward to seeing play out over the course of this draft?
Ooh, that is a really good question. Obviously, like I mentioned before, the Southpaws in this class on the prep side, I'm really interested to see, because in the past, we've always seen like the top prep right-hander or left-hander kind of falls a little bit. Noble Meyer, for example, everybody thought could be a top 5 pick in 23, fell to 10. Dylan Lesko was obviously highly touted. He fell to the mid-teens. So I'm interested to see how teams kind of evaluate the risk reward with these prep guys, because prep pitching is a very volatile demographic. Pitching in general is, but you have so much time to kind of work with these guys. And sometimes if an injury happens, Dylan Lesko lost command, essentially. Now he's a reliever in the Rays system when he had so much polish and so much upside as a starter. So, I'm looking at some of these, like Carson Bowman is very polished. I would like to see where he ends up. Gio Rojas is the most upside of any of the prep lefties, in my opinion. Where does Brody Bumia go? You have a lefty throwing 101 with 7 feet of extension. Where does he end up going? There's a lot of storylines just in that demographic alone that I'm interested to see what teams do and how they kind of force each other's hands in the draft.
Well, Tyler, where can people that are watching, listening, catch your work? What you got coming up? All that.
Yeah, so obviously go to justbaseball.com. We have a college tab and an MLB Draft tab. Jared and Mark and Will, all those guys do a fantastic job on the college side. So if you are interested in college game, please give them, a read, a shout, do whatever you'd like to do for them. We got a couple of them in Omaha this upcoming week. So Monty, Will, and Mark have all gone out there. They're going to crush it this week. I know they will. Outside of that, you can find me on Twitter at Tyler Jennings 24. I will not call it X because that's not at all what it is. Instagram and Blue Sky are the same handles as well. So if you want to follow me on either of those accounts, that also works. Outside of that, working on a top 250 board for the draft, hoping to have that out for the next week or so. And then obviously, as we get closer to the draft, we're going to try and do some team previews on the clock side of our podcast. So going to try and get everything ready for that, and as well as getting ready for getting through 17 U champs this week, collegiate national team in a couple weeks, kind of getting a kickstart on 2027 class as we kind of wind down on 2026.
Awesome. Well, Tyler, thanks so much for joining us, and go Canes and go Tar Heels.
Yes, sir. Go Canes.
All right. That is going to do it for our show. Thank you again to Tyler for joining us. And thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Colby Patnode, I'm Tyler Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Tyler Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.